They pushed my chair back and said it out loud so everyone could hear. That seat was for her ex. I stood there while her son laughed, while the family stared, while Helena nodded like it was normal. I didn't argue. I didn't leave. I memorized who was watching. My name is Tanner Jossman, and I've been married to Helena for 7 years. 7 years of building something I thought was real. Tonight, at her family's Christmas dinner, I learned exactly what I meant to them. The dining room gleamed with crystal and silver, everything polished to perfection. Helena's mother, Gloria, had outdone herself with the decorations, red velvet ribbons, gold candles, the works. 23 people around that massive mahogany table, and they all watched as 19-year-old Keaton, Helena's son from her first marriage, pointed at my chair. "This seat belongs to my real dad," he said, his voice carrying that entitled whine I'd grown to despise. "Get out!" I looked at Helena, my wife of 7 years, the woman who shared my bed, my house, my bank accounts. She was staring at her plate, but I caught the slight nod, the approval. Rhett Vossen slid into my chair before I'd even stepped away. Helena's ex-husband, the one who'd walked out on her and Keaton when the boy was 12. Now he was back, apparently, and my place at the table was his. "Merry Christmas, Tanner," Rhett said with that smirk I remembered from their wedding photos. He was 44, same as me, but he carried himself like he owned every room he entered. Classic cars were his business, and he wore success like an expensive cologne. The silence stretched. 23 pairs of eyes on me. Some looked embarrassed, most looked curious, waiting to see what the tech guy would do. Would I make a scene, storm out, beg for my seat back? Instead, I pulled out my phone. Under the table, fingers moving with practiced precision, I sent 3 emails. The first went to my lawyer, Maggie, my sister actually, who'd been warning me about Helena for months. The second went to my business partner, authorizing the transfer of certain assets back to my personal control. The third was a simple message to my accountant. Execute Plan B, effective immediately. Then I canceled a wire transfer. $50,000 that was supposed to hit Helena's personal account tomorrow morning for her spa retreat with her girlfriends. One tap, and it vanished back into my business holdings. Finally, I scheduled a document release for midnight. Papers Helena had never seen, contracts she didn't know existed, legal arrangements I'd put in place years ago when I was still naive enough to think love meant trust. All of this took 90 seconds. While they passed the mashed potatoes and pretended this was normal, I dismantled the life Helena thought she controlled. "Everything okay, dear?" Gloria asked, her voice dripping with false concern. Helena's mother had never liked me. Too blue-collar, she'd said once. Too rough around the edges for her precious daughter. "Perfect," I said, sliding my phone back into my jacket. "Just handling some business." Keaton snorted. "Business? On Christmas? God, you're pathetic." I studied his face. Soft features, weak chin, the kind of kid who'd never worked a real day in his life. Helena had spoiled him rotten, and it showed in every entitled gesture. "You know what's pathetic, Keaton?" I said quietly. "A 19-year-old who still needs mommy to fight his battles." Helena's head snapped up. "Tanner, please, it's Christmas." "You're right, it is Christmas." I stood, straightening my jacket. "And I just gave myself the best present I could imagine." Rhett leaned back in my chair, and grinned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I looked around the table one more time. At Helena's family, who'd tolerated me for 7 years but never accepted me. At her friends, who whispered about my background when they thought I wasn't listening. At Lana Firth, Helena's best friend and law firm colleague, who was recording this whole thing on her phone. "You'll find out," I said. I walked to the coat closet, pulled on my leather jacket, and headed for the door. Behind me, conversation resumed. Louder now, excited. They thought they'd won something. Outside, the December air bit through my jacket. Helena's family lived in the old money part of town, where the houses sat back from the street behind iron gates and manicured lawns. Rhett's cherry-red Mustang was parked right in front, because of course it was. I walked past it to my own car, a modest Honda that had served me well for 5 years. As I opened the door, I heard laughter from inside the house. Loud, celebratory laughter. My first move happened at the table. I sent 3 emails, canceled 1 transfer, and scheduled a release for midnight. I stayed quiet, wished them Merry Christmas, and walked out after dessert like nothing mattered. But something did matter. Everything mattered. I drove home through empty streets, Christmas lights blinking in windows, families gathered around their own tables. Normal families, where husbands weren't kicked out of their chairs for ex-husbands who'd abandoned their children. My house, our house, sat dark at the end of Maple Street. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, nothing fancy but mine. Paid for with money I'd earned building websites and managing IT systems for half the businesses in town. Helena had moved in 3 years ago, bringing Keaton and his attitude with her. I parked in the garage and sat in the silence for a moment. In 6 hours, everything would change. The documents I'd scheduled would release automatically, triggering a cascade of legal and financial arrangements Helena didn't know existed. She thought she knew me, thought I was just the quiet tech guy who fixed her computer and paid her bills. She had no idea what I was capable of when pushed too far. My phone buzzed. A text from Helena. "Where did you go? Come back. We can talk about this." I typed back, "Enjoy your dinner. Say goodbye to Rhett for me." Another buzz, this time from Keaton. "Stop being such a baby. It's just a chair." Just a chair. Right. I went inside and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon. Good stuff, the kind I saved for special occasions. Tonight felt special enough. At 11:47 p.m., I raised my glass in a toast to the empty kitchen. Merry Christmas to me. At midnight, my phone started ringing. Helena countered fast. She posted photos with her ex in my house, tagged me as unstable, and told the family I was jealous and broke. She didn't know the documents she mocked were already queued, signed, and time-locked. The first call came from Helena at 12:03 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. The second came at 12:07, then 12:11. By 12:15, my phone was buzzing every 30 seconds. I turned it off and went to bed. When I woke up at 7, I had 47 missed calls and 63 text messages. I made coffee first. Good coffee. The expensive beans Helena always complained were too strong, then settled in to read the chaos. Helena. "What did you do? The accounts are frozen." Helena. "Tanner, this isn't funny. I can't access anything." Helena. "Call me back right now." Keaton. "My tuition payment bounced. Fix this." Rhett. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now." And my personal favorite from Gloria. "This is childish behavior, even for you." I sipped my coffee and opened my laptop. The overnight reports showed everything had executed perfectly. The house, which Helena assumed was jointly owned, had reverted to my sole ownership, a legal arrangement I'd established before we married, when I was still smart enough to protect my assets. The joint checking account, which she'd been using like her personal piggy bank, had been closed, and the funds transferred to my business account. Perfectly legal, since I was the primary account holder and had provided all the funding. Keaton's tuition payments, which came from a trust I'd established and funded, had been suspended pending review of beneficiary status. Since he wasn't legally my son and Helena and I weren't divorced, I had every right to reconsider the arrangement. But the real masterpiece was Rhett's situation. See, Helena's ex-husband wasn't quite as successful as he pretended. His classic car dealership was leveraged to the hilt, and he'd been using his renewed relationship with Helena to secure financing. Financing I'd quietly provided through one of my shell companies. As of midnight, that financing had been called in. Full payment due in 30 days. My phone buzzed. Helena again. This time I answered. "You bastard," she said without preamble. "What have you done?" "Good morning to you too, sweetheart. How was the rest of dinner?" "Don't play games with me, Tanner. The bank says you closed our account. They say the house is in your name only. They say a lot of things, most of them true. Silence. Then, you can't do this. We're married. I have rights. You do have rights. The right to find somewhere else to live, for starters. This is my home. I laughed. Actually laughed. Your home? Helena, you've been living in my house, spending my money, and apparently sleeping in my bed while planning to replace me with your ex-husband. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? It wasn't like that. Last night was just, Keaton was being dramatic. You know how he gets. I know exactly how he gets. Entitled, spoiled, just like his mother. The line went quiet for a long moment. When Helena spoke again, her voice had changed. Gone was the panic, replaced by the cold calculation I'd seen in courtrooms when she was working a case. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, Tanner, I'm a lawyer. I know how to make your life very difficult. I'm counting on it, I said, and hung up. Within an hour, Helena's counterattack began. She posted photos on social media, pictures of her and Rhett at Christmas dinner, smiling and happy. The captions told a story. Sometimes you have to choose between toxic people and your own happiness. Grateful for second chances and real love. Some people can't handle when others move on. She tagged me in every post. My phone started ringing with calls from friends and colleagues who'd seen the posts. Most were confused, asking if everything was okay. A few were more direct. Dude, what's going on? Asked Mike Chen, who ran the IT department at the bank. Helena's posting some pretty harsh stuff about you. Helena's entitled to her opinion, I said. How's your network security these days? Still using that outdated firewall? Mike paused. Yeah, why? Might want to upgrade soon. I'm hearing there are some vulnerabilities in older systems. Are you threatening me? Just friendly advice between professionals. But Helena wasn't done. By noon, she'd called my biggest clients, telling them I was going through a difficult time and might not be reliable for ongoing projects. She reached out to my sister Maggie, painting herself as the victim of an abusive husband who'd stolen her access to their shared assets. Maggie called me laughing. She actually tried to get me to represent her in a divorce, my sister said. Against my own brother. Can you believe the nerve? What did you tell her? That she'd need to find other counsel, preferably someone who doesn't know you as well as I do. Maggie was 3 years older than me and twice as mean when provoked. She'd been a legal aid lawyer for 15 years, helping people who couldn't afford fancy attorneys like Helena. She'd also been warning me about my wife's true nature since the day I introduced them. She's going to come at you hard, Maggie continued. Restraining orders, claims of financial abuse, maybe even domestic violence allegations. It's the standard playbook for contested divorces. Let her try. I've got documentation for everything. Good. But Tanner, be careful. Cornered animals are dangerous, and Helena's definitely cornered. That afternoon, I drove to my gym. Jude's boxing was in the rough part of town, a converted warehouse where guys like me worked out their frustrations on heavy bags and speed bags. Jude Krantz, the owner, was an ex-bouncer who'd taught me everything I knew about fighting, which wasn't much, but it was enough. You look like hell, Jude said when I walked in. Feel worse. Helena kicked me out of my own chair last night, literally, in front of her whole family. Jude stopped wrapping his hands. She what? I told him the whole story while I changed into workout clothes. By the time I finished, Jude was shaking his head. Man, that's cold, even for a lawyer. It gets better. Her ex-husband took my seat. Her son laughed about it. Her whole family just watched. What are you going to do? I pulled on my gloves and approached the heavy bag. I'm going to make them regret it. The first punch felt good. The second felt better. By the 10th, my knuckles were singing and my head was clear. Don't get mad, Jude said, holding the bag steady. Get even, but be smart about it. Oh, I'm being smart. Helena thinks she knows me, but she's only seen the nice version. There's a not nice version? I threw a combination that made the bag swing. There's about to be. That evening, I sat in my study, my private space that Helena had never been allowed to enter, and planned my next moves. The study was my sanctuary, lined with technical manuals and classic novels, equipped with multiple monitors and enough computing power to run a small business, which technically it did. Helena thought I was just a local IT guy who fixed computers and managed networks. She had no idea about the consulting contracts, the software licensing deals, the cryptocurrency investments, or the shell companies I'd established over the years. She especially didn't know about the surveillance system I'd installed throughout the house 6 months ago, after I'd started suspecting she was cheating. Tiny cameras, audio pickups, keystroke loggers on her laptop, all perfectly legal since it was my house and my equipment. I'd been collecting evidence for months, waiting for the right moment to use it. Now seemed like the right moment. I opened the files and started reviewing footage from the past month. Helena on the phone with Rhett, planning surprise visits when I was out of town. Helena and Lana in my kitchen, laughing about my pathetic attempts to fit in with her family. Helena in my bedroom, on my computer, researching divorce lawyers and asset protection strategies. But the best footage was from 3 days ago. Helena and Rhett in my living room, on my couch, discussing their plans for Christmas dinner. "He'll probably just sit there and take it," Helena had said. "He always does." "And if he doesn't?" Rhett had asked. "Then we know where we stand. Either way, this charade ends soon." I saved the file and started uploading it to a secure server. By morning, Helena's family, friends, and colleagues would have a very different perspective on who the victim really was. At 2:17 a.m., my release went live. The house, the accounts, and the business they used every day were never hers. The trust reverted. Access was cut. The contracts auto-expired. Rhett lost his position before sunrise. Keaton's tuition portal locked. But I wasn't done, not even close. They woke up to frozen cards, inactive phones, and emails that couldn't be undone. The Christmas table was still set. The seat was empty. I didn't go back. Instead, I went to work. My office sat above Chen's Electronics on Main Street, a modest space that had served me well for 8 years. 2 rooms, basic furniture, but packed with the kind of technology most people never see. I'd built my business on being the guy who could solve problems other IT professionals couldn't handle. Now I was about to become the guy who created problems they couldn't solve. I arrived at 7 a.m. and found 17 voicemails waiting. Helena, Keaton, Rhett, Gloria, Lana, and several others, all demanding explanations, threatening legal action, or begging for mercy. I deleted them without listening to the details. My first call was to Detective Paul Greeley, an old friend from high school who worked for the city police. Paul and I had stayed in touch over the years, occasionally grabbing beers and talking about the old neighborhood. "Tanner, little early for a social call, isn't it?" "Not social, Paul. I need to report some potential fraud." I could hear him sitting up straighter. "What kind of fraud?" "Identity theft, unauthorized access to financial accounts, possible forgery. I've got documentation." "Bring it in. I'll take a look." My second call was to Jennifer Walsh, the HR director at Helena's law firm. Jennifer and I had dated briefly in college before I met Helena. We'd remained friendly over the years. "Jen, it's Tanner Jossman. I need to report some concerning behavior by one of your employees." "Helena? What's going on?" "She's been using privileged information from client files to make personal investments. I've got records." It wasn't true, but it didn't need to be. Corporate investigations took time, and even false accusations could damage a lawyer's reputation permanently. My third call was to the registrar at Keaton's college. "This is Tanner Jossman. I need to discuss the trust account funding for Keaton Marin's tuition." "Of course, Mr. Jossman. How can I help you?" "I'm revoking the trust authorization, effective immediately. The account holder is no longer eligible for benefits." "Sir, we'll need that in writing, and there may be academic consequences if the spring tuition isn't paid." "I understand, The paperwork is already in the mail. By 9 a.m., I'd filed police reports, initiated corporate investigations, and canceled financial support for everyone who'd laughed at me 3 nights ago. But I was just getting started. Helena called at 9:15. "You vindictive piece of trash," she said. "I know what you're doing." "Good morning, Helena. How did you sleep?" The police came to my office. They're investigating fraud charges. My supervisor wants to see me this afternoon. Keaton's school called about his tuition. Sounds like a busy day. This is harassment. I'm going to destroy you. You already tried that, remember? Christmas dinner? My chair? Silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to pack your things and move out of my house. You're going to stop using my name and my credit. You're going to tell your family and friends that our marriage is over and it was your choice. And if I don't? Then tomorrow will be worse than today, and the day after that will be worse than tomorrow. You can't intimidate me, Tanner. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I hung up and opened my laptop. Time for phase 2. Helena's social media accounts were linked to email addresses I'd helped her set up years ago. Email accounts that use servers I managed. With a few keystrokes, I locked her out of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, then changed the recovery information to addresses she couldn't access. Next, I called every service provider in town: cable company, internet provider, cell phone carrier, utilities. As the account holder and bill payer, I had the right to cancel services or add restrictions. Helena's phone went inactive at 10:30 a.m. Her internet died at 11:15. The cable went out during her lunch break. But the real masterpiece was Rhett's situation. His classic car dealership, Jossman Automotive, was hemorrhaging money. I knew because I'd been quietly financing his operation for 6 months, ever since Helena had asked me to help out an old friend. Now that old friend owed me $200,000, payable in 30 days. I drove to his lot at noon and found him screaming at his accountant in the showroom. Through the windows, I could see vintage Mustangs, Camaros, and Corvettes, beautiful cars that represented his entire net worth. I walked in like I owned the place, which, technically, I was about to. "Tanner!" Rhett's face was red with anger and stress. "What the hell is this?" He waved a stack of papers at me. "Loan documents. You borrowed money. Now you need to pay it back. You never said anything about a 30-day call provision. You never asked. Maybe you should have read the fine print." Rhett's accountant, a nervous man in his 60s, cleared his throat. "Mr. Vossen, the terms are clearly stated in Section 12 of the agreement. The lender has the right to demand full payment with 30 days' notice." "I can't pay $200,000 in 30 days. You know that." I shrugged. "Then I guess I'll be taking possession of the collateral." "What collateral?" I smiled. "Everything. The inventory, the building lease, the customer database. It's all listed in the security agreement you signed." Rhett lunged at me. I sidestepped easily. 8 years of boxing training with Jude had taught me to read telegraphed punches, and he stumbled into a display case full of vintage hood ornaments. "Careful," I said. "You break it? You bought it. Oh, wait. You can't buy anything. Your credit's been suspended." "You planned this," he said, picking himself up. "This whole thing was a setup." "No, Rhett. This whole thing was business. You wanted to take my place at the table? Fine. But everything comes with a price." I left him standing in his showroom, surrounded by cars he was about to lose, and drove to my next appointment. Lana Firth worked at the same law firm as Helena, but in a different department. She handled real estate transactions and had been Helena's best friend since college. She was also the one who'd been encouraging Helena's affair with Rhett. I knew because I'd been recording their conversations for months. Lana's office was on the 3rd floor of the Meridian building downtown. I took the elevator up and walked past her secretary like I belonged there. "Tanner?" Lana looked up from her desk, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk. If this is about Helena, I can't discuss." I dropped a USB drive on her desk. You might want to listen to this before you decide what you can and can't discuss." She plugged it into her computer. Her own voice filled the room, crystal clear. "He's so pathetic, Helena. I don't know how you stand living with him." Helena's voice. "It won't be much longer. Once Rhett and I are back together, I can file for divorce and take half of everything." Lana's voice. "What about prenups?" Helena's voice. "What about them? Tanner's too trusting to have insisted on one. Besides, 7 years of marriage in this state means I'm entitled to alimony." Lana's face went pale as the recording continued. 20 minutes of her and Helena planning my financial destruction, laughing about my blue-collar background, and discussing how to manipulate the divorce proceedings. "Where did you get this?" "My house, my recording equipment, perfectly legal. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What do you want?" "I want you to stop helping Helena. I want you to tell her that her legal strategy is flawed, and I want you to remember that I know where all the bodies are buried." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. Helena's not the only one with secrets, Lana. You've been skimming money from client escrow accounts for 2 years. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but I've been tracking the discrepancies." It was a bluff, but Lana's expression told me I'd guessed correctly. "You can't prove that. Try me." I left her staring at her computer screen and drove home. My house, sat empty and quiet. Helena had taken some clothes but left most of her belongings, probably hoping she could pressure me into letting her return. She was wrong. I spent the afternoon changing locks, canceling her access codes, and removing her name from every account and service. By evening, Helena Jossman legally existed only as my wife. Everything else, credit cards, bank accounts, club memberships, professional associations, had been transferred back to her maiden name or canceled entirely. My phone rang at 6 p.m. Unknown number. "Hello? This is Gloria Marin. I think we need to talk." Helena's mother, the family matriarch who'd spent 7 years treating me like hired help. "I'm listening." "This has gone far enough, Tanner. Helena made a mistake, but you're destroying people's lives. Helena made a choice. So did Keaton. So did Rhett. So did you when you sat there and watched them humiliate me. It was just a chair. It was never about the chair, Gloria. It was about respect, something your family seems to have forgotten. What do you want? Money? An apology? Just tell me what it will take to end this." I thought about it for a moment. What did I want? I want Helena to admit what she did. Publicly. I want Keaton to apologize for being a spoiled brat. I want Rhett to pay his debts. And I want you to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, the blue-collar guy your daughter married wasn't as worthless as you thought. And if we do that, if we give you what you want, then maybe I'll consider not destroying what's left of your family's reputation. You're not the man I thought you were. No, I agreed. I'm not. I'm much worse. I hung up and poured myself another bourbon. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, covering the city in white. It looked peaceful, serene. Inside, I was planning war. The next morning brought news that made me smile for the first time in days. Rhett's car lot had been visited by the city inspector, who'd found numerous code violations and safety issues. The lot was temporarily closed pending corrections. I knew about the violations because I'd reported them. Anonymously, of course. Helena called at 8 a.m., her voice hoarse from crying or screaming or both. "Enough," she said. "Please, Tanner, just stop." "Stop what?" "You know what. Rhett's business is ruined. Keaton can't pay for school. My job is in jeopardy. My mother is having chest pains from stress." "That's unfortunate. This isn't you. You're not cruel. You're not vindictive. You're right, I wasn't, but you changed that. It was just a stupid dinner, just a chair. Why are you doing this over something so trivial?" I set down my coffee cup and walked to the window. Snow covered my yard, my driveway, my neighborhood. Everything looked clean and fresh and new. "Helena, do you remember our wedding day?" Silence. Do you remember what you promised? In sickness and health, for better or worse, till we part. Of course I remember. Do you remember what I promised? The same thing. Wrong. I promised to love you, honor you, and protect you. I kept that promise for 7 years. I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for your lifestyle. I put Keaton through prep school even though he hated me. I tolerated your mother's insults and your friends' condescension because I loved you. I know you did. I know you do. Past tense, Helena. I did love you. Right up until the moment you nodded when your son told me to get out of my own chair. I was trying to keep the peace. You know how Keaton gets when he's upset. I know how everyone in your family gets when they're upset. They take it out on me. Well, guess what? Now I'm upset, and you're about to learn how I handle it. I hung up and drove to the courthouse. Maggie was waiting for me in the lobby, a thick folder under her arm. You sure about this? She asked as we walked toward the elevators. Absolutely. Once we file these papers, there's no going back. Helena will fight you on everything. Let her fight. I've got bigger guns. We took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where the family court clerk accepted our divorce petition. No fault, irreconcilable differences, but with a detailed accounting of assets and a request for full disclosure of Helena's financial activities. How long before she served? I asked. 24 hours, Maggie said. Maybe less. Good. I want her to get the papers at work, in front of her colleagues. You really have turned into a bastard, haven't you? I learned from the best. Helena's been planning this divorce for months. I'm just beating her to the punch. That afternoon I drove to Keaton's college. The kid was home for winter break, but I had business with the financial aid office. Mr. Jossman, the counselor said, we received your letter about the trust fund. This is very unusual. Unusual circumstances. Keaton is no longer my legal dependent and I'm no longer married to his mother. But sir, the spring semester starts in 3 weeks. If the tuition isn't paid, then he'll have to find another way to pay for it. Student loans, maybe, or a job. This will destroy his academic standing. He'll probably have to transfer to a state school. Character building, I said. The boy could use some. My next stop was Helena's law firm. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I just parked across the street and waited. At 4:30 p.m., a process server walked into the Meridian building. At 4:45, he walked out. At 5:15, Helena emerged, looking like she'd been hit by a truck. She saw my car and marched across the street, divorce papers clutched in her fist. You filed for divorce? Without even talking to me? We're talking now. How did it feel, getting served at work? Humiliating. Just like you intended. Now you know how Christmas dinner felt. Helena's composure cracked. Tears started flowing, mascara running down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry about the chair, about Keaton, about all of it. Can't we work this out? For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She looked genuinely broken, genuinely remorseful. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman I'd married, the woman I'd built a life with. Then I remembered the recording of her laughing about my pathetic attempts to fit in with her family. No, I said. We can't. What about 7 years of marriage? Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything, right up until you threw it away for your ex-husband. I never slept with Rhett. We never did anything. Maybe not, but you wanted to, and you chose him over me. Helena wiped her eyes, smearing makeup across her face. Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get one. But I'm not going quietly. I'll take half of everything you own. Good luck with that. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. It means you should have paid more attention to the paperwork you signed over the years. Prenups, asset protection trusts, business incorporation documents. I may be blue-collar, Helena, but I'm not stupid. Her face went white. What paperwork? The paperwork your lawyer friend Lana witnessed and notarized. The documents that protect my business assets from divorce proceedings. The trusts that keep my real estate holdings separate from marital property. You're lying. Am I? Asked Lana. Oh wait, you can't. She's been suspended pending investigation of her escrow account irregularities. Helena stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? She whispered. I'm the man you underestimated. I'm the husband you betrayed. I'm the guy who's been 3 steps ahead of you since Christmas night. I got back in my car and drove away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk in the falling snow. That evening, I met Jude at the gym. The place was nearly empty, just a few regulars working out their daily frustrations on heavy bags and speed bags. You look better, Jude said as I wrapped my hands. Feel better too. Helena still giving you trouble? Helena's not my problem anymore. Rhett's broke, Keaton's learning about consequences, and my soon-to-be ex-wife is discovering that divorce isn't as profitable as she thought. Sounds like you won. I threw a combination at the heavy bag, feeling the satisfying impact of leather on canvas. Not yet, but soon. What's left? The final lesson. The one that makes sure they never forget what happens when you push me too far. Jude held the bag steady as I worked out 7 years of accumulated frustration. Just be careful, he said. Revenge is like boxing. You can win every round and still lose the fight if you get careless. I'm not getting careless. I'm getting even. The next morning, I woke up to find my house surrounded by news vans. Apparently, Helena had decided to take our divorce public, painting herself as the victim of financial abuse and emotional manipulation. I watched from my bedroom window as reporters set up cameras on my lawn. My phone was ringing constantly, journalists wanting comments, neighbors asking questions, friends wondering what was happening. I ignored them all and made coffee. At 9 a.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Detective Greeley standing on my porch. Paul, what brings you by? Can I come in? We need to talk. I led him to the kitchen and poured him coffee. Paul had been a cop for 20 years, and it showed in his careful way of observing everything around him. Helena filed a complaint yesterday, he said. Claims you're harassing her, threatening her, engaging in financial abuse. And I've known you since high school. You're not the type. People change. Do they? Or do they just stop pretending to be something they're not? I sipped my coffee and considered the question. What do you want to know, Paul? Did you threaten her? I told her there would be consequences for her actions. Is that a threat? Depends on the consequences. Legal ones, financial ones, social ones. All perfectly legitimate. Paul nodded slowly. The fraud investigation you asked me to open, it's not going anywhere. Helena's clean as far as I can tell. I know. You know, then why? He stopped. You never thought she was committing fraud. You just wanted to cause her problems at work. I wanted her to understand that actions have consequences. That's a dangerous game, Tanner. So is humiliating your husband in front of his family. Paul finished his coffee and stood up. I can't arrest you for being vindictive, but I can't protect you if you cross the line. What line? You'll know it when you see it. After he left, I sat in my kitchen and thought about lines. How many lines had Helena crossed? How many had her family crossed? How many had I crossed in response? My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. This is Rhett. We need to talk. I typed back, no, we don't. I can make this worth your while. I doubt that. I know things about Helena, things you don't know. That got my attention. What kind of things? Meet me at Murphy's bar tonight, 9 p.m., come alone. Murphy's was a dive bar downtown, the kind of place where people went to drink away their problems. I arrived at 9 and found Rhett sitting in a corner booth, nursing a whiskey and looking like he hadn't slept in days. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the opposite seat. Feel worse. Thanks to you, I'm about to lose everything. That's what happens when you borrow money you can't repay. I can repay it, just not in 30 days. Not my problem. Rhett leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. What if I told you Helena's been planning this divorce for over a year? What if I told you she's been hiding assets, preparing to screw you over long before Christmas dinner? I'd say you're desperate and lying. What if I could prove it? He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. Helena's number, dating back 14 months. She contacted me first, Rhett said. Not the other way around. She wanted to get back together, but she needed time to handle her current situation. I read the messages. Helena discussing divorce strategy, asset hiding, ways to make me look unstable or abusive, plans to use Keaton as a weapon, to turn my own family against me. Why are you showing me this? Because I need more time to pay back the loan, and because Helena threw me under the bus the minute things got difficult. What do you mean? She called me yesterday, told me this was all my fault, that I'd ruined her life by going along with the Christmas dinner thing, said if I didn't fix it, she'd tell everyone I forced her to choose between us. I studied Rhett's face. He looked sincere, but then again, he was a salesman. What do you want? 6 months to pay back the loan. In exchange, I'll testify in your divorce proceedings. I'll tell the court everything. How she planned this. How she manipulated both of us. How she's been hiding money in offshore accounts. Offshore accounts? Cayman Islands. She's been moving money there for months, preparing for the divorce. If this was true, it changed everything. Helena hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she'd been systematically stealing from me, preparing to leave me with nothing. I need proof, I said. I've got bank statements, transfer records, everything. She trusted me with the details because she thought I was on her side. And now? Now I'm on my own side. Help me save my business and I'll help you destroy her. I looked at this man who'd taken my chair, my place at the table, my wife's affection. 3 weeks ago, I'd hated him. Now he was offering to be my ally. 6 months, I said. But I want everything, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence you have. Deal. We shook hands across the table, 2 men united by betrayal and the desire for revenge. There's something else, Rhett said. Something Helena doesn't know I know. What? Keaton isn't my son. The words hit me like a physical blow. What did you say? DNA test. I had it done 3 years ago when Helena first started talking about getting back together. The kid's not mine. Then who? No idea. But Helena's been lying to everyone, including Keaton, for 20 years. I sat back in the booth, processing this information. If Keaton wasn't Rhett's son, then Helena had been lying about her first marriage, about her son's paternity, about everything. Does Keaton know? Not from me, but he's going to find out eventually. How? Rhett smiled grimly. Because you're going to tell him. I drove home through empty streets, my mind racing. Helena's betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. She hadn't just been planning to leave me. She'd been planning to destroy me financially while building a new life with a man she'd lied to about his own son. The next morning, I called Keaton. What do you want? He said, his voice full of teenage attitude. We need to talk. In person. I don't have anything to say to you. You will after you hear what I have to tell you. Is this about the tuition? Because Mom says you're just being vindictive. It's about your father. Silence. My father's name is Rhett Vossen. You're not my father. You're right. I'm not. But neither is Rhett. Another long silence. What's that supposed to mean? Meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street, 1 hour. Come alone. He was waiting when I arrived, slouched in a corner chair with his phone in his hands. At 19, Keaton was tall and lean like his mother, but his features didn't match either Helena or Rhett. This better be good, he said, without looking up. I sat down across from him and placed a manila envelope on the table. DNA test results, I said. Rhett had them done 3 years ago. That's impossible. Mom told me. Your mother told you a lot of things. Most of them lies. Keaton opened the envelope with shaking hands. I watched his face change as he read the results. Confusion, then disbelief, then anger. This can't be right. It's right. Rhett Vossen is not your biological father. Then who is? I don't know. But I think it's time you asked your mother. Keaton stared at the papers for a long moment, then looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because you have a right to know the truth. Because you're old enough to handle it. And because your mother has been lying to everyone for 20 years. You're just trying to hurt her. This is part of your sick revenge. Maybe. But the DNA test is real. The lies are real. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I left him sitting there with the test results, staring at proof that his entire life had been built on deception. That afternoon, Helena called. What did you say to Keaton? She screamed. He's asking questions about his father, demanding answers I can't give him. I told him the truth, something you should have done years ago. You had no right. I had every right. That boy has been used as a weapon against me for 7 years. He deserves to know why his real father isn't in the picture. His real father is gone. The line went quiet. Helena had just admitted what I'd suspected. What happened to him? Car accident when Keaton was 2. I met Rhett 6 months later and he was so good with Keaton and I wanted my son to have a father. So you lied. I protected my child. You built his identity on a lie, and when Rhett left, you kept lying, and when he came back, you used that lie to justify destroying our marriage. Helena was crying now, great sobbing gasps that might have moved me a week ago. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You planned all of this. The divorce, the asset transfers, the whole thing. How did you? Rhett told me everything. The offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the timeline. You've been planning to leave me since before Keaton graduated high school. Silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to transfer every penny back from those Cayman accounts. You're going to drop the harassment charges. You're going to sign the divorce papers without contesting them. And you're going to disappear from my life. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about Keaton's paternity, about your financial fraud, about everything. Your legal career will be over. Your family will disown you, and your son will never forgive you. You're destroying my family. Your family was built on lies. I'm just telling the truth. I hung up and sat in my empty house, surrounded by the remnants of 7 years of marriage. Pictures on the walls, furniture we'd chosen together, memories that now felt like artifacts from someone else's life. Tomorrow, Helena would start transferring the money back. Rhett would begin making payments on his loan. Keaton would confront his mother about 20 years of deception, and I would finally be free. The Christmas table was still set somewhere, but the seat was empty. I didn't need to go back. I'd found something better than revenge. I'd found the truth.